Hey everybody, and welcome back to the November 27th edition of Fed News. Let's get started. So this week, some wrestling news. Bobby Lashley has signed with Raw. Kurt Angle has signed with SmackDown. Ethan Page has signed with AAA. Al Snow has signed with Blue Impact. LA Knight, has signed with IWGP. Perry Saturn has signed with Blue Impact. Al Perez has signed with the UWF. Lance Von Erich has signed with the UWF. And Grayson Waller has signed with the new WCW. So match results for the week: Iron Sheik defeated the Dynamite Kid. Owen Hart and the British Bulldog would defeat Andre the Giant and Million Dollar Man. The Click would defeat LOD and Bob Backlund, and Hulk Hogan would defeat Don Morocco after they drew last week. Main event: Bret Hart and Ultimate Warrior would defeat Psycho Sid and Mr. Perfect. On to WCW now, as Zeus would defeat Brian Pillman, Marty Jannetty would defeat Larry Zbyszko, Barry Windham defeats Stevie Ray, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan defeats Rick Rude. The main event saw Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, and Tully Blanchard defeat Randy Savage, Great Muta, and Jake Roberts. Over to Great Balls of Fire now, as Raw hosted their second pay-per-view. Shelton Benjamin would defeat Moose for the 24/7 Championship. Randy Orton and Edge defeats the Usos for the World Tag Team Championships. AJ Styles will defeat Logan Paul. Seth Rollins will defeat Austin Theory, John Cena, and Cody Rhodes in a fatal four-way. Bill Goldberg would defeat Rock, ending the series 2-1. Matt Riddle defeats Shinsuke Nakamura for the WWE United States Championship after taking second place in World War III Battle Royal. The main event saw Drew McIntyre retain over Roman Reigns after Bobby Lashley caused a distraction. Over to SmackDown now, Scott Dwight would get his win back over Buddy Murphy. JBL defeats Apollo Crews. Rey Mysterio and Jeff Hardy defeat Test and Finn Balor before their match coming up at the next pay-per-view. And Kane defeats Booker T. The main event saw Chris Benoit defeat Steve Austin, Triple H, and Brock Lesnar to claim the number one contendership for the title. The world title, that is. Over to Collision now, as Hook would defeat Jake Hager. The Dark Order defeats Death Triangle. Matt Hardy defeats Brody Lee. And the main event saw CM Punk and Malachi Black end in a time limit draw. Over to Dynamite now, as SCU defeats the Young Bucks, Darby Allin defeat Ricky Starks, FTR defeats Ortiz and Santana. The main event saw the Butcher and the Blade defeat Sammy Guevara and Chris Jericho. No show on Rampage this week, nor NXT. However, in NWCW, Ridge Holland defeats X-Pac, Gunther defeats the Hurricane, Scott Steiner defeats Big E, and the main event saw Karrion Kross defeat Bobby Lashley, who has since left the company, in the main event. Over to Heat now, as Zodiac defeats Virgil, Greg Valentine defeats the Goon, and the main event Samu and Dusty Rhodes defeats Harley Race and Vader. Impact this week had Tony Nese defeating Crash Holly, Val Venus defeats Mike Knox, and Jerry Lynn defeats Snitsky. Over to Blue Impact, as Scotty Riggs defeats John Heidenreich, Charlie Haas will defeat Delirious, and the main event saw Bill DeMott defeat Sean O'Hare. Over to IWGP, as Matt Striker defeats Chuck Palumbo, Lance Storm defeats Shingo Takagi. Main event saw Sonata defeat Zack Sabre Jr. Over to AAA now, as Gangrel and Kevin Thorne defeat Chris Bay and Jimmy Jacobs. Dexter Loomis will defeat Noam Dar, and Roosh would defeat Rene Dupree. Over to WWE ECW, as Enzo Amore defeats Angel Garza, the Ascension would defeat Lucha House Party's members Lindsay Dorado and Grand Metalik. Kalisto would defeat Jack Gallagher. Main event saw Big Cass defeat Velveteen Dream. Over on Excite, Los Matadores would defeat Undisputed Era. Heath Slater would defeat Drake Maverick. Bobby Roode defeats Titus O'Neil. The main event saw Mark Henry and Jinder Mahal end in a time limit draw. SWF had a show this week, as Crush and Pat Patterson ended in a time limit draw. The Junkyard Dog defeats Berserker, and in the main event, Roddy Piper defeats King Kong Bundy. TNA had a show as well. Sabu returned to defeat Magnus. Jay Lethal defeats Lance Cade. The main event saw Rob Conway defeat Desmond Wolfe. NWA also had a show as well, as Coco Beware defeats Tony Atlas. The Barbarian defeats Jimmy Valiant. Buddy Roberts and Gorilla Monsoon defeated the Killer Bees. The main event would see Bad News Brown defeat Killer Kowalski. IWF had their show as well this week, as Spirit Squad defeats Highlanders and Trevor Murdoch, who teamed up. Balls Money would defeat Funaki. Deuce and Domino defeat the Bashams. The main event saw Marcus Corvon defeat Orlando Jordan. And that's all the news for this week. Of course, big shout out to Shelton Benjamin winning the 24/7 championship, Edge and Randy Orton winning the World Tag Team Championships, Matt Riddle winning the WWE United States Championship, and Drew McIntyre retaining the WWE Undisputed Heavyweight Championship. Of news as well, Great Muta has officially been announced as number one contender to face the Giant for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship in a future show at the next pay-per-view. And I will see you next week